Hey, really excited about this week's podcast. And the man is back on, Dr. Craig Duncan. How are you, mate?
I'm fantastic, Greg. How are you?
Living the dream, mate. Living the dream. And we're going to talk about, is ego damaging your leadership? Is ego the enemy?
Yeah, absolutely. It is, and it can be, and we're going to try and make sure it's not an enemy for you.
Let's rip in.
Welcome to the Body Science Podcast, bringing you everything you need, want, and should know about health, fitness, nutrition, and training. As always, the information contained in this podcast is for the information purposes only and is not designed to diagnose or be prescriptive to treat, prevent, or manage any injury, disease, or other health-related condition.
This podcast was brought to you by the newest product to enter the Body Science Performance range, Myocytin. Independent research proved Body Science Myocytin to outperform standard creatine. In only 6 days, athletes ingesting Myocytin gained more than twice as much body mass as those consuming regular creatine. Athletes also increased upper arm girth by over 200% more than regular creatine users and improved their bench press performance significantly more than users of regular creatine. Ask your local supplement retailer how to get yours.
Welcome to Body Science HQ, the world of fit, happy, healthy. And today we're going to talk about ego and leadership with Dr. Craig Duncan. Mate, this is a big topic for you, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is, because I think ego affects all of us, and I've seen it really impact leadership. But we also have to remember, everyone is a leader, because you are leading yourself, and we need to focus on that. But particularly if you're in a leadership role in any aspect of life, if you're a coach or wherever you are, ego is going to impact you.
And let's be honest, you've just tapped on everyone as a leader in some capacity. I want to flip this bad boy if we can. How do we know if we have a big ego that's affecting us? Like, how do we know that we've got an ego?
I think the easiest way to know is when someone challenges you and everything in your body wants you to fight back or turn and storm off in the other direction. Wow. I think that's a great way to know. When that happens, that's your ego.
Yeah. So from a leadership perspective and, damaging, I mean, obviously there's natural born leaders, and I'm not sure they're the people that, run at the front or whatever it is, like a lot of people talk about when they're putting out good leadership. I think leadership is understanding people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's all about relationships. But where a good place to start is what leadership is not.
Okay,
so
I
think let's go with that. So leadership has nothing to do with seniority or one's position in the hierarchy of a company.
Nice.
So we need to be clear on that.
Yep.
Leadership has nothing to do with titles. So you don't become a leader just because it says that you're the leader. Leadership has nothing to do with personal attributes. And leadership is not management. However, what leadership is, it's a process of social influence which maximizes the efforts of others towards achievement of a goal. And it's exactly what you said, Greg. It's about relationships.
And mate, you've obviously worked with a lot of sporting teams, Socceroos, New South Wales, Rugby League, Manly. I could go on forever on teams you've worked with. What's one of the big traits that you've seen? I mean, obviously being a football coach is a big gig these days because you're blamed for performance. Okay. So you're not running on the field, you're not doing anything, but you've got 30 men in a squad and you have to bring the best out of them every day. What are some of the traits of good leadership in the sporting world?
In my experience, the good leaders are the ones that very much understand that they can't do it by themselves.
Okay.
So often leaders make the mistake, and particularly coaches make the mistake, thinking that they have to be the tall poppy, the big dog there, and that they have to know it all because that's what people is expecting. The best leaders are the ones that know they can't know it all, and together as a team, we work together to get those positive outcomes. They're the leaders that I see have the most success. They surround themselves with very good people and not an echo chamber. See, you also know when you've got a problem as a leader in respect to ego is you surround yourself with people that tell you what you want to hear.
Okay.
And we call that the echo chamber, and it's the most destructive thing that you can ever do as a leader. And I see this time and time again with coaches, because as your ego grows, as your power grows, you've got people around you, they just want to please you because your livelihood, the pleaser's livelihood, is related to the leader, right? Because the leader has the power to say you're working for me or not working for me. They're the worst people to ever have around you. What you do need is a challenge network.
And mate, so from a challenge network, give me an overview of what that actually means.
It means that, well, I have a challenge network around me and you're part of it. It's the people that I know will care about me and have my back. So that's important, that they do want the best for me. So that's important. However, if I'm feeding them something that isn't going to get me where I want to go, they're going to tell me. And they're not going to worry about telling me because they know that's the role that they have in this relationship. So for me as a human performance strategist, if I'm advising a coach and they say something to me and it's not correct, then it's my job, that's what they're paying for me for, to tell them what's the best outcome for them, because what I want is for them to achieve what they're desiring to achieve, not to please them. That's not my goal. That's not what I get paid for.
So
However,
it's about the desired outcome, not making the journey fun. Is that what you're saying?
Well,
and fun,
journey.
if you've got an ego, when I say fun, what I'm talking about is, yes, I'm doing the right thing. Yes, I'm killing it. Yes, we're doing well. Look how good I am. That type of scenario I'm talking about. You're talking about people realigning me all the time as a leader?
Yeah, absolutely. Having those people around you that actually want you to enjoy the journey, to get the journey right. But the thing is, when people say something to you, nah, Greg, that's not right. I think we could do it another way. What happens to you there? All of us as humans, it's natural for us. We want everyone to love us. We want everyone to agree with us all the time. That's the natural thing. Mm-hmm. However, that will get you not very far in life.
Okay. So, mate, let's step back to the ego side of it. If I've got a manager or an upline who has an incredible ego and, they've invested their family's money and life and time and taken away from, dinners with the kids, and like someone at the top who's worked hard to be where they are, how do I, as a middle manager, take this approach with someone who has an ego? Like, it's really easy for you and I to sit here and say, and, we both run our company, so it's really easy to say, oh, you should do this and you should do that. But there's dates and times when I know that people around me are not going to change the path that I'm on because I've got something big I want to achieve and I'm head down, bum up. I'm probably not the best leader at that time. I do try to be a good leader. I mean, you monitor me, so you know what type of leader I am. But there are times when I just walk straight through the back of the factory, come in, shut the door and go. Something's happened. Something's ignited me. And because I'm in that position of leadership, I can march through, close my door and put my head down. But my middle management, they don't have a door to close. They don't have the ability to go and nest somewhere else. They've got their space in the office that they've picked to be there where they sit and what they do. And they don't have that luxury of just turning off, if that's the way to put it, the rest of the world. Whereas I can, as a leader, I can go, don't talk to anyone, don't care about your problems, don't come near me. I wouldn't say that to people, but that type. Well, maybe I have said it once or twice because the production manager's laughing right now. But I have the ability to do that, and that's an ego-driven, you're a boss, you think you can do whatever you want. But I've got a bigger picture and a bigger goal in mind, and people may not get that at the time. But stepping back, so I actually finish this sentence, my middle management probably doesn't have the chance to do that because they've still got to work with me on what I want to do, and they've got to work with the people around them that deliver upline to them. So how does that middle management or that leadership group that works with the person who has the ability to have that ego actually put into place a program to make that something that is real versus just a good idea?
Well, that's interesting what you say. I mean, I'm going to just take it a step back. What makes you think that you locking your door with your head down and bum up, focused on something, is the best way for you to do that? Because are you blocking yourself away from a concept of what I would call rethinking? Because you could be going down the wrong direction. Is there any possibility that you could be going down a wrong direction at that time?
Absolutely, because there's, I'm in my lane and I'm staying in it and I'm not looking left or right.
Okay, so This is very interesting. Okay, but what's going on with you then? What are you thinking? You're marching in and you're going straight to your office and you're locking your door. You've got an idea, and I know you're a fabulous leader. I really think you're great, and you've definitely got your company and your people at front of mind. But you're being very authentic here and telling me there's times when you don't feel like that. But I want to embrace those times because I know you do have those busy times. And what's going on there?
Oh, look, it could be many things. It could be a cultural issue of something that's happening with the brand story in the marketplace that comes across in a very direct, when something comes over the bow of the boat, you go, whoa, that was close. And I would say recently I made a massive mistake with one of our therapeutic products in that we had a date and time that we had to move it by. We just landed it. It was a big issue for the brand. And we're talking big dollars in the big picture of what it was. And there was teams that need to be realigned, strategies need to be reset. I had to tell my business partner what had happened. There was a lot of things going on that could have gone 1,000 ways. And so the way I probably dealt with that was I set a strategy up to myself before I got in the car, made the phone calls or two that I needed to back up some of the things I was talking talking about. And I normally walk through the factory, high five the boys, fist pump, how you going, what's happening out the back, and girls that working in dispatch and in the garment division, all that. And then I go around and say hello to everyone in customer service downstairs. And then I walk up and I've got my crew here and we do our thing in the Octagon, which is a part of the office that I run. But there's days where I just go, I peel straight in, and I might be on the phone at the time. I might be, and people, I don't get it, but people will say to me, Greg's got those eyes on.
Yeah. And look, I'm aware, obviously, I'm aware of what happened the other day with you. And what I will say is that you did a great thing as a leader, is you owned that and you went into, I suppose, fix it mode. However, what I would need you to be aware of, and this is interesting, is that the days that you do come through, and what we know from leadership research, the days where you do come into your office and you are in that, and that's completely justifiable. Do you know what I mean? You want to get to the desk and you want to get on to this, what you're going to do. But those days where you do walk through that impacts your people.
It does.
Okay. And so that the way that impacts your people, so it decreases the creativity and productivity. And it's like a family when dad's angry and he's had a bad day at work, and you're a kid, you don't feel comfortable at home. That's what's actually happening in your workspace, but it's a little bit more important in some respects to home, because those people in turn, their well-being goes down for that day, and depends how long it goes on for. But they could in turn make further mistakes, which sort of catastrophizes a mistake that the leader might have had. So I think all leaders need to be aware of the absolute impact that they're having on their workforce at all time.
And mate, I get that, and we're exactly where I would like to be on this podcast right now. We've got a leadership example where ego allowed someone to walk through, shut a door, and just get on with what they need to do. Now, let's drop down to the leadership group that I work with.
Yep.
Now, how do they handle that? Because it's really cool for us to say, as a leader, you need to acknowledge and all the things that you're talking about. But what about turning that upside down, where that crew has seen me walk in, they know I've got that face on?
Yep.
How should people in middle management be dealing with this ego-driven employer?
Well, again, it goes one step back from that. It's and in our leadership development work, it's having those relationships with those key people in your area that you've created. Have you created an echo chamber or a challenge network? What have you created?
Oh, look, I like to believe I've got a challenge network, because that's something I strive. I've got, you talking to me about that regularly. I've got Luke talking to it, and Luke talking to the team as well in certain areas around that. But that day was definitely an echo chamber. I knew what I was hearing, and it was me.
Yep. Okay. So that's fine. And this is an extreme example for everyone listening.
Oh, it's not my day. It's not my everyday. But it's really easy for us here to say, oh, you should do this, and you should do that, and you should do this. And it's probably not CEOs that are taking on what we're taking at the moment. It is very much middle management leaders that probably, when you look at the demographics, who loves the Body Science brand, it's that 24 to 45-year-old. And we're talking people who they're in the middle of the pecking order. They're in an area where they've got a voice. They should have some type of change mechanism going with what they're doing in their life, or jog on, move on somewhere else. So we're very big on that here at Body Science. But that day, and I know, look, a couple of examples that happened was Claire, my marketing EA, came into me and she gave me some calm stress support, winked at me and walked out. I think that was her way of saying, hey, dude, you're on the edge of where you normally aren't. And she didn't try and give me advice or anything. She just she knows I love calm stress support. So she dropped it down with a glass of water and winked at me and walked out. So, and like Ash, who works with me, had some meetings booked in that morning. She just cancelled them in the diary and moved on and re-put them for another day. So there's people around me who reacted in a way that didn't cause disruption. But what I'm saying is middle managers do not know how to deal with someone with an ego. We're saying as leaders, we've got to try and hide that. But as leaders, we have that. You don't get to leadership unless you've got some type of ego and some play. It's how you manage that as a human that really matters.
Yeah. Look, how we need to deal with that as middle managers first is that we want to work on ourselves as leaders. Okay, so that's imperative. So if you're listening to this and you're in a middle management spot, you can research your leader as such and identify what they're doing positive and what they're doing negative, and how to actually work that. I would say to the middle manager is you need to do your job. So what is your job? Okay, if your job is, and your leader, okay, is is off track and you have built a relationship on that day, I would hope that the relationship is there, okay, that is there where someone, and look, Greg, I'm very much in prevention of this.
Yeah.
So what we should be doing with the body science team is taking a step back and going, when this happens to our owners, and it could be you or Nath, it could be anything.
Yep.
Okay, when this happens and you're in this conversation, so it's going to happen again. Okay, that is 100% going to happen. It could happen 10 times during the year that you're going to walk in exactly like that, because I know the pressure you're under at different times of the year. Okay. So we do the pre-mortem, what is the process that we go through? And we all agree to that process, that this is the process. The process should have probably been is that you presented what actually happened. Everyone's inclusive, everyone knows, because who's to say that the idea you thought up in while you were sleeping or in the morning was the best idea, rather than this middle management team that you've got that you believe in, they might have had some other ideas and we could have got to a better outcome.
Absolutely.
So what I'm saying is, like, it can only work when we preempt this, or what we talk about as having a pre-mortem, to go, this is going to happen. There's going to be times, you're human, that you're going to walk in and you don't want to speak to anyone. Cool. All right. There has to be something. What's the process for that? Because it's great what Claire did. Very good emotional intelligence to do that. But what we didn't get is that we had a group of middle managers that could come in and have a discussion. So it needs to be, if I was a middle manager, I would be coming in and going, okay, something's up here. All right. Can we sit down and discuss it? Now, that's going to take guts. That's going to take courage.
Yep.
They're the people I want. I don't want them sitting out scurrying in the background thinking, oh, Greg's upset, or my leader's upset, so I'll just do this. Because who knows what Greg's doing? Who knows what the leader's doing? He could be making decisions in there that are based on emotion, are based on sleep deprivation, that could mean I'm not going to have a job because we don't have a company.
Yep,
so are you courageous, or are you worth actually going up that step as a middle manager? That's what I would say.
And I think that's great advice. And if you can't do that, you're probably in the wrong place, to be honest. If you're probably going to be held back in time. We all have the luxury these days of seeing coaches at halftime.
Yes.
And you see so many different styles, sitting in circles, people walking around doing whatever they want. You see coaches going off, throwing things, kicking things. Now, you've done a lot of monitoring of athletes and that. So is there a time and a place where ego is deserved? Like, is there a time and a place where laying the law down actually realigns where things are? Because, sorry, let me cut you off, mate. You go.
Yeah, what I'm going to say there, Greg, is, in the work that I do with coaches, okay, I always want them to be self-aware. The whole self-science philosophy is about self-awareness, knowing yourself. I'll say to coaches, you've got three or four rants in you, maybe a year.
Okay.
You need to use them under control. The coach that's going off, that hasn't thought exactly why they're doing that they're strategic in why they're doing that, and they're using one of those cards, okay, is for me just an amateur. However, I need to be clear with people here. There are some wonderful coaches, but I would say there's more coaches that aren't wonderful because they need to learn the concept of leadership, to learn this strategy, to work with people to get them to be better. I'm very fortunate to work with some very good coaches that are mindful and intelligent of that way. When they go off, they know exactly why they're going off, and it's because of that reason. And I would say that's any leader. You've got that in your back pocket, but use it strategically. Just the rant for no reason. And if it's done every week, I'll tell you what it does to players. After 2 or 3 times, in continual weeks, you don't even hear it anymore. They're just going, here you go again, and then what you've done is lost the dressing room. Okay, so I've seen that happen, and I'm just like, what's going on here? Because their ego's getting in the way. I've sat there where I've heard coaches talk about my reputation. Coaches saying, what you're doing is it's my reputation, and it's like, what are you? Who wants to play for a person like that?
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm sitting there going, hang on, where do you want to go with this? Because you're showing your cards that this is all about you. You don't care about your people. And this happens in the workplace as well. It's about relationships. And if I say there's research on what followers want from their leaders, and I can guarantee you it's not a big ego.
So, mate, just stepping back to that big ego when you've got 3 or 4 in your pocket. Okay, that scenario there, because that's an interesting analogy from someone who's monitored a lot of people. So obviously you've been in sport, you know backwards there's 1 or 2, and there's times where things just don't click and frustration, and you spend a coach would spend all week working on strategy, and it goes, as soon as the whistle goes, gone. And I can understand people kicking things at halftime, but from someone who does have those 3 or 4 and uses those every year, like I'm now talking about the leader that does at times show their ego. If you're in that environment, for the people around you, are you spraying one player or the whole team? Like, if you've got the need to do that and the desire to do that, do you, and say it's a halfback that's just not playing the game, like something really simple. In that group, is it dangerous to talk about the whole team in that ego spray, or is it better for the team to acknowledge that the halfback hasn't been doing what the plan is? Am I making sense what I'm trying to ask you here?
Yeah, you are. But
do people need to know when a leader's ego is out of control, the true purpose of it, or do they need the general version of it, like you guys or Johnny?
Yeah, look, I would say the leaders I want to work with, I never want to see their ego out of control. Yeah, I wouldn't call that an ego spray. I would call it, it's not to do with ego. It's a strategic identification at a high level of emotion to make a really good point. I believe in the sports that we work in, they're team sports.
Yep.
So no one is ever, not one person is ever responsible for negative actions on the field.
Advice, yeah.
And if people do single out people, I've got a real problem with that, because you can do that because, hey, if we make mistakes, do I need someone ramming it down my throat?
Absolutely.
I know on the sporting field, someone knows when they've made a mistake. It might be a quiet conversation with one of the other coaches just looking at it. Are you okay? Are you right to go on? Is this out of your head? That's what you want to sort of do. But if the entire team, we come as a team, we win as a team, we lose as a team, we make mistakes as a team. It's a team sport. Let's focus on that. It's interesting though, when people are kicking things and it's uncontrolled on the weekend. The whole thing was sport. It's the journey of the training. That's where the work should be, in the preparation before the game. The game is the player's day to show what you've done in that journey. So how many leaders sit back and are aware enough to go, hang on, the preparation wasn't right. If the execution is wrong on the game day, surely we've got to look at the training and how that happened and how we got them to the preparation. That's where ego comes into it, because people just go at it and they've got these other coaches going, yeah, the players are rubbish. I hear this. The players are rubbish. Your staff is rubbish. You've got all these little people around you going, not, they might be little, but, going around you and saying this, where it's like, hang on, let's look at us. We're preparing the team. We're apparently coaching the team, and this happens. See, I'm even thinking, when you told me that you're walking in the back door and you're going up to your office, I'm thinking, hang on, why haven't I addressed that? I'm thinking that, like, do you know what I mean? I'm thinking that with you. So I think a coach should be going, hang on, the team isn't performing. What have we done wrong in this preparation? Because one of the greatest coaches of all time, John Wooden, if you haven't looked up John Wooden, please do. He was identified as the best basketball coach in the 20th century. Yeah. He coached at UCLA, if you haven't known him, and they won incredible games. And some of his writing, he became like a philosopher, in respect to this. And he always talked about that training had to be greater than the game, that they trained at such, everything was done right. And I read recently about him that he actually spent, when the students first came to UCLA, 2 hours teaching them how to put their socks on. Because if the socks weren't put on right, and there was crinkles in them, that it could lead to blisters, which would lead them to miss training sessions, which would lead them to miss games. So that attention to detail he's going back into. He's not going to rant on a post-game, in a half game. He's going to think about, okay, I'm going to address this at training. So
well put. I like that.
Why I say you've got 3 or 4 in your bag to have those rants, they're more from a motivational perspective.
Yeah.
Okay. And you need to know what you're doing. It's need to know when the arousal is down, and you need to rise the arousal. The team is just not putting in. It seems to be everything's a bit down. We've all seen it in sport. They need to get them in halftime, and you need to get them. So psychologically they go out and they're more aroused to perform. That's the only reason. It can't be because you've got to get something off your chest.
Yeah.
That's not leadership.
No, fair enough. Totally agree with that too, actually.
Mm-mm.
That's a very, very good point. So, mate, packaging up leadership, what are some of the styles of leadership we've got out there that you've just done a leadership course, if I'm correct? Or you're doing a leadership course?
I've been doing some research in leadership, which is fantastic for me after all these years. And gee, it's been fascinating looking at the literature. And I'm going to, I've got a couple of leadership projects that are on the way, research projects. And one I've spoken to you about, working with the Body Science crew and other people that we work with. Look, what I'm very much about servant leadership, authentic leadership, these styles where you really create relationships. My leadership philosophy I talk about most is agile. There will be some times where you've got to come in and go, okay, I just need to get this done. You've got to do this, this, and this, that authoritarian sort of leadership. But overall, I want your foundation to be, about relationships, building those relationships. And that's what people, when people have been researched identifying what leadership skills are needed most, out on top comes that the leader inspires and motivates others. That's important. Displays high integrity and honesty. That's number 2, Greg, integrity and honesty. Yeah. I'm sorry, there's so many people I see in leadership positions do not have integrity and honesty. And you know what one of the issues is when ego's out of control? You know what it does? It short-sights your vision, and leaders that have out of control with their ego, they also start to be involved in more corrupt behavior.
Okay.
They lose sight of what is the right thing to do. The other thing that people want to see in leaders is that they communicate powerfully and prolifically. So they're regular communication with their team. They collaborate. They promote teamwork. They build relationships. Like in an organization. Do you know with those people that you're dealing with? Do you know what makes them tick? Because you know what, extra money in their pocket is not going to inspire them. However, if you know what's happening with them, their sporting team that they support, and then on the weekend you come and go, you know what, I've got you a couple of box seats at that sporting game. They're going to love it because you know what, you care. They know that you care. Do you know how many leaders, because of their ego, they think it's all about them, that they don't pat people on the back and go, you know what, that was a fantastic idea. This is what it became, and it was because of you. I want to acknowledge your performance. No. Like doing that on a regular basis. See, leaders with big egos, they don't do that. They will never do that. They will just think it's all about them, all about their bottom line, all about their fame and fortune and power, rather than thinking about, hang on, what about these people that are helping me to get there? Like that's what it's about, Greg.
Absolutely.
And that's the leadership I like. This is authoritarian type leadership, is just not, I don't think it's just long term, it's not going to work. And that's how a lot of coaches operate in the sporting field, particularly in the major sport I work in, which is soccer. It's like, this just doesn't work. This is the industrial age stuff, how you're conducting yourself. How do you want people to play for you if you don't care about them? You know what it's like, Greg. We've all been led. If a leader, I want to play for you, because you believe in me, and I think it's really important. Interesting enough, and I know just to go on a little bit, but millennials, and you have a lot of millennials working with you.
We have a lot of millennials.
And can I tell you about millennials? Millennials are the best, but they get a really bad rap because people like you and me that are now in their 50s forget what it was like to be a kid, and that's a real problem. And we forget what it was like to be younger. Yep. So we then expand this generation gap that we used to complain about from our parents. Do you know what? Millennials, they're educated, they're tech savvy, they want to make a difference, they're environmentally conscious, they want to leave the world a better place. However, if they're not inspired and we don't work with them, that's not going to happen.
Mate, it's really interesting you say that, because I sent to Sheree and Nathan this week, what millennials want. I've found this really cool, Mentoring Millennials by Gene Meister and
Williard.
That's it. Yeah. So I knew you'd be all over it. So the top 5 characteristics of what they want in a boss, what they want in a company, and what they want to learn. That's just 3 great things to build a foundation on, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what they want? They want straight feedback. They want you to help navigate them a career path. They want to be mentored and coached.
And sponsored, feel like you're part of their journey. That's one of the big things that's coming across in this, which
Absolutely.
is what you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, they want these skills. They want to develop. They want to be inspired. You know what? Everyone wants to be inspired. inspired by something that you've created that's going to make the world a better place. I mean, that's how I see the world. However, there is so many leaders that are still leading in a way, I'm talking 1900s, 1800s, and it just can't work. And I mean, if you're a leader out there and you need help in this area, I'm here to help, because everyone needs a coach. And sadly, there's a lot of leadership development programs out there, but I don't know really if they hit the mark, because the leadership development coach sometimes becomes part of the echo chamber.
Yes.
Rather than telling it how it is. Like, I'm sitting here, Greg, and I can't get out of my head. I'll tell you again, are you walking in that back door and not high-fiving those guys because you made a mistake?
And probably along the lines of, I probably didn't put my monitoring that day. You know what I mean? It's probably been that whole scenario of, so just so you know, with Dr. Craig here, he has a monitoring system, and I recommend everyone reach out to him. And look, I'll be really honest. I've told him he's got to make it pretty or it won't work, because it's based on coach to athlete. It needs to go from coach to, gee, that looks pretty on my watch. So we've been having that chat, but it is an amazing tool. And I think that anyone, how do we get you, Dr. Craig? Like, if people want to contact you about monitoring from a CEO level to a management level to a whole staff or to a division, and we're not talking monitoring, people need to understand it's not watching what you do, because as soon as I mention the word monitoring to people, they go, oh, why would you want someone to know what you're doing?
Yeah, can I chat to that? Yeah. Because this is an example of my ego. My ego is the enemy of me. I know what I'm like, and I know, but I try to practice what I preach in respect to self-science. And when I see my body prick up, when my challenge network, which you're part of, and my business partner is a major part of, and say things to me, I go, oh. And one of the things you both said to me, it's incredible. This app, it's ugly. Yeah. And I'm going to do this.
I
and
like
I'm
pretty
like,
things.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay. And then you're this, I needed to do this, this, and this. So in actual fact, it's taken me a while to accept that, because I might say, well, there's 5,000 other people that haven't said that. However, excitingly, I've decided to change my whole philosophy for this new market, where we are developing an app at the moment. It will be called Dr. Coach, and it will be quite different to what we started with, based on the feedback of my challenge network, which you're a major part of now. And I'm comfortable, because I know that it's going to be a better product and get me to where I want to go, which is to help people. Look, the best place to go for me is drcraigduncan.com.au. If you go there, it's got all my other links to all my Instagram, YouTube, wherever you want to go. And it's also got a link to our company, PIA. So that's the best place to find me, contact me, and send me an email or whatever you want to do, because I know you're waiting out there. You've got untold potential, and sometimes, ego is just part of the noise that gets involved, and then we don't ever reach our potential. And that's the thing I want to try and prevent with people that we work with.
And it's really interesting, like from a monitoring perspective, I'll get a text message from you on a Sunday. Use your Sunday to set up to power through Monday. That's one of the messages, because you've been watching what I'm doing. You've probably seen my Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I've put my work, because obviously I'm going through an issue at the moment. I've put my work issue at 9 out of 10 of intensity and that type of thing. So part of this monitoring is just these little messages that come through to make, and I'm just scrolling through, you send me so many. It's just amazing, like, what impact are you having on your workforce today? So obviously I've done something in my monitoring with you, and you've decided that I'm just going to realign Greg a little bit here and go, what impact have you had on your workforce today? And while the wording there isn't pretty and nice, you're straight to the point. I sat back and went, yeah, let's think about that.
Yeah, and that's a theory, like a psychological theory about nudging. It's actually called nudge theory, or I like to call it.
I love that. You're talking to me about that the other. We should do a podcast on that.
Yeah, and it's just about nudging you in a direction. And I know sometimes you don't want to hear it. That's not what I'm here for, and I think sometimes you ring me up and go, I know you don't want to hear it, or I start talking away and you go, hang on, stop talking, just do it. So, I mean, I've got to say, if you're out there, if you've got people around you that are just always patting you on the back, do this for me, do this. Say something absolutely ridiculous if you're a leader that is going to be negative for your business or negative for your environment. And if people agree with you, you're in big strife. That's You've got the wrong people around you. Either you get and coach them to tell them that's not what you want. It's an example what you've created. So you've got to reflect on that, and you've got to change course, particularly if you want to maximize the potential of your organization. And I don't care if you're a personal trainer leading yourself, or a small gym owner, or a big gym owner, or whatever you're in the body science family, it doesn't matter. You've got to question and start thinking, okay, am I being the best leader I can be? And if you say, yes, I am great, and I do not have an ego, that's the best one. I do not have an ego. Yeah, you do, because the ego is the enemy for every person listening to this. And I've got a major ego that I have to try and control every single moment of my life.
Yeah. So it's awareness.
Self-science.
Yep, I love that. We might wrap up on that, mate. That's been great having you on board. I think there's a lot of really good outtakes from that a lot of people will sit back and think about. I know I've got to sit back and think about a few things, and I do know that I'm going to get a phone call from you when I hang up because you're going to go and pick my brains on my little internal explosions I had. So, mate, thanks for coming on board. It's Dr. Craig Duncan. It's drcraigduncan.com.au. Once again, I just want to shout out to everyone. Thank you for following the Body Science Podcast. Thank you for subscribing. If you subscribe, it allows us to get people like Dr. Craig on to give his advice. He's given an hour and a half of his time today. He is a person that is at the highest level of sports science with a lot of other great people that we have on the podcast. And, mate, thanks for coming on. And everyone out there, thank you so much for subscribing. We really do appreciate it. Everyone does. It's not just me. There's a team that put this together, and all of us say thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
See you, mate.